Hello, and welcome to Wired Differently, inside the Neurodivergent Mind. I'm your host, Sarah Matzkin, and I was diagnosed with ADHD in 2016, and I'm still trying to figure it out, especially what it means to be neurodivergent. As a Harper student and reporter, I want to talk to other students about their neurodiverse way of life. Neurodivergence can include, but is not limited to, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and dyspraxia. So let's diverge our way into understanding. I'm sitting here with Luethy, a third-year student at Harper who's majoring in communications.
I talk about what areas of neurodivergency.
Yes. So I have nonverbal learning disorder, which I always say is kind of a cousin to autism and ADHD. There's some similarities and some that aren't. Obviously, I'm verbal, so the nonverbal relates to how I learn and differences in whether the professor is teaching verbally or if they're drawing pictures or something like that. And then I do have dyscalculia, which is funny that you mention it. I've known it as math disorder my entire life. So it's basically dyslexia, but in the world of math. Instead of literacy and words, it's numbers and it's stuff like that. And then I also have a couple of other issues with depth perception and stuff like that, which I found out that I share with Daniel Radcliffe. So,
Oh my god.
Oh, I was like, a wizard doesn't have depth perception? So that's always really funny. But yes, so a number of those issues that affect everyday life.
Do you want to talk about maybe life before your diagnosis and then after?
So I would say that I was diagnosed, I put that in air quotes, pretty early. Yeah. My mom always knew there was something wrong with me because I wasn't getting certain areas correct, and I really struggled with math, obviously. Yes, math is always the struggle. And so she always knew that there was something and I don't want to say wrong with me, but that's, I feel the right way to put it. There was something different with me, right? Diverse. There was something unique about me. And I'm very lucky that I had a mom who picked up on it right away and who had the neurotypical kid and then the very not neurotypical kid to kind of create that contrast. But I think I was professionally diagnosed 5th grade. And what's really interesting, though, is that I am not recognized by the ADS, the Access and Disability Services, for nonverbal learning disorder. I'm recognized for depression and anxiety because I don't think nonverbal learning disorder is nationally recognized.
Do you think in the future it will get nationally recognized, or?
I don't know. There's still a lot of, I don't want to say there's a lot of stigma around it. There's still a lot of unknown. And I feel a lot of the online culture right now is so we're diagnosing ourselves. And then because we're diagnosing ourselves, when there is something that's different than autism or ADHD, people aren't understanding that. And people are not understanding that there are more than one or two types of neurodiversity because of that stigma that has been created around that. So I don't know. I hope it will be, obviously.
Was it clarifying it all to get a diagnosis and be okay, this is the label for it, I guess, or was there just no difference?
For neurodiversity, I would say there was no difference because I do think having the mom I had was really affirming, but I'm physically disabled now, and I have a lot of physical disabled issues that aren't diagnosed, and that's where I feel that would be clarifying because a lot of my neurodiversity has transferred over into physical issues. I don't have the depth perception, so I'm going to trip over the box, and then my ligaments aren't great, so I'm going to dislocate the knee.
Did she do her own research or
I got diagnosed, and she there's a whole section on her bookshelf that's the nonverbal learning disorder shelf. And so she has I almost brought a couple today. She has several books on it, and she says once you started reading it, you were yes, this is, because she knew, she's I knew you were never autistic. I knew you were, and certain things just didn't fit, but then this really fit. And so that was really important for her to then also give copies of the books to teachers that I would have who like were open about helping me learn the way that I needed to learn, which I feel like is so important in education.
I think more teachers maybe should be educated on the areas of being neurodivergent. It not only affects our life, but like outside of the classroom, but like for me, I guess it was really hard in the classroom.
I think people forget that neurodiversity is a way of living and it affects you in every corner of your life. And when you're a child, the main thing you're doing is school.
Right.
Yeah. Like, and when you're at school, you have social settings, which is another area of it, right? So school is where everything is happening. You're having a kid who is struggling in math. You're having a kid who is inappropriate in social settings. And it's connecting those dots and being willing to, again, work with the kid and figure out what they need and not just pushing them to the side and saying, well, they're normal enough.
For your teachers, I guess, growing up pretty like accommodating or helpful or...
Growing up, I was pretty profusely bullied. So because I was a little different and because I wanted to read a lot. And so I had a lot of problems in the school setting. And I think a lot of the problems that I had was that I presented fine in some areas. I'm a very good reader. I loved talking to my adult teachers at that level because I could, right? And because I wasn't like in such a tight bubble where I was so poor in all areas, it's hard for teachers to see that and to accommodate to that. That's not an excuse. I wish I had better teachers for. I had some great teachers and I had some teachers that were willing to work with me, but it's the teachers that take the time to get to know the kid and to get to know the kid's needs. And I think we are seeing more of that as time goes on. And like our generation getting older and realizing what they wanted in the classroom and then becoming that teacher, I've been noticing a lot more. I think that so many people just assume like neurodiversity is such a bad thing or it's an excuse. Like I see a lot of people saying that like accommodations are just an excuse not to turn in an assignment in on time. That's not true. It's a way for us to meet your level of academic success while we have some setbacks. And I think it's important to know that like it's a fully life encompassing issue that we wish we weren't struggling with, but that in order to reach your level, we might need a little bit more hand-holding or we might need a little bit more guidance to get us to the level that you want us to be at. Around high school, I think I really perfected the self-advocacy journey, like maybe sophomore or junior year. And I don't know if it's because a lot of my issues did start becoming more physically visible. I think that's also the problem for teachers is that a lot of the struggles that kids are having are invisible. And you talk about invisible disabilities, right? That's a whole conversation where people struggle like, and it's like, oh, it's in their head, but you're like, yes, it's in their head, but like they're having like a physical like reaction to something. So I think that is a whole conversation about it. But I think it's become easier because one, I've had a mom, again, who's taught me how to advocate for myself. And also because I have recognized, I have been able to verbalize a lot more of my own issues that I've been recognizing that have been a problem.
Do you think Harper has been like pretty accommodating?
Besides not salting the ice outside when it's winter time.
Yeah, please do that.
I think they're great. I think I've only had a couple of issues with professors and I've been able to go to the ADS office and figure it out, which is, again, like you have a specific office in your building that is willing to help you at college. Like I feel like in high school, a lot of the time it's your school counselor who has 300 kids on their docket, who is trying to meet every kid every quarter of the semester. And that's a lot. Like I couldn't handle that, right? Like that's insane. But it's also acknowledging that, okay, well, if there is that need, then we need to find that need, help that need in a different way. And I think it's very easier at college to get that help and to find that help.
Yeah, like you said, like being neurodivergent is invisible, so nobody is gonna know that you need help unless.
Yeah, and it's your business. Like if you don't want to say you're neurodivergent, you don't have to. It's your business. It's your disability, but also don't let that restrict you from getting the help that you need and the support that you need from other people.
Are there any challenges or obstacles you face on a daily basis that you've had to like kind of overcome?
I think the biggest challenge specifically at Harper is getting somebody to be a note taker. I think it's so interesting that there are students who I see taking notes every single day that won't take pictures and submit it for $75.
That's very true.
I'm like, you're sitting there taking notes. Please submit it.
You get money.
You get money.
Yeah.
And I met my best friend.
Really?
She was my note taker. She said that she would be my note taker. And she came up to me after class and she was like, "Are you getting my notes?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Oh." And then we like had to troubleshoot the problem. And then we figured it out. And she gave me my notes. And she's my bestie. And then every time she took a class with me, she signed up to be my note taker. So I guess I was paying her to be my best friend at the end of the day. But she signed up to be my note taker whenever we were in classes together. But it's also knowing when there is no note taker and nobody's taking it, it's taking that step to talk to the professor and being like, how are we going to solve this? Because I do need to be able to go back and continue to take notes or have that resource. I will shout out Professor Bill Lucio. Name drop, Professor Bill Lucio. Hello, if you're listening, if I force you to listen. We did not get any note taker requests in Speech 101. And he met with me and he talked to me about how he was still gonna give me the material I needed for his class. He was like, "I'll give you PowerPoints if you need it. I'll essentially be your note taker and I'll get you the material that you need so that you don't feel behind." And I feel that's really important for professors, no pun intended, to take note of.
Do you feel like you've still been able to be successful in your own life without letting your neurodivergent areas of life like define you?
I feel like that's such a tricky question because I'm such an advocate for myself. I feel like I do let it define me in some regards. Like I do podcasts now. I do panels. But I don't think I let it hinder me. You know, I think it's fine if you let your disability define you. I think there are certain aspects of life where it can be incredibly frustrating when your disability defines you, when you're going through a really rough flare or you're in math class every day and you're like, I'm just not getting this. Like, it's another day of graphing and I'm sitting here like trying to plot my points and it's not working. And so I think that's okay if you have those moments to be like, I am having a really bad neurodivergency moment. But how can I use my neurodivergency and how can I support myself and how do I get the support from others? And knowing how to be able to do that is really important. But I think if we look at like all the powerful things that do come from being neurodivergent, hosting a podcast and talking to other people about it is amazing. And you're doing that, like, incredible, right? And I love reading and I've made it a point to always recommend disability books. And I've chosen that path and I've proceeded to make that a really important part of my life, to give people the tools, whether they're neurodivergent or not, to see the neurodivergency in real life.
Did that take a long time to get to that point?
Yes. Especially because I was bullied for so long. And because I was unwilling to get past the hindering phase. But now I'm fine. Like now I'm like, Yes, let's do a podcast. But I feel like it's important to know that everybody's at a different level. You say in your intro that you got diagnosed in 2016, right? I got diagnosed a little earlier than that. So I had that extra time. There are people who know they're a little neurospicy, to use that term, but maybe they're not professionally diagnosed because they don't have the financial needs, or they don't have the people at home that are willing to accept that about them. And so they have to mask all the time. And I feel like it's important to know that while I am fully comfortable embracing my neurodivergent side, and I love it and I use it as a superpower, it's okay if you're not. And you don't have to embrace it yet. There's not a timeline. Even if you've been diagnosed for your whole life, there is not a timeline, and you can take your time, and we're here for you, like, no matter the step you're at. It's hard. It's hard to be different, and it's hard for people to notice your differences but not have a label or know, like, everything about you. And it's hard to talk to professors. Like, talking to Professor Lucio, I was like, there's no interest to be a note taker, and I was freaked out. And that's okay. Like, it's all about knowing that everybody is at a different step and is willing to acknowledge who they are in front of other people and to themselves.
Yeah. I think maybe we know more about neurodiversity. People are getting diagnosed now, maybe later in life. I guess, what would you say to somebody who's like more recently diagnosed? Like, if they're kind of more shy about it, or like maybe confused?
There's always a community to support you, I think, is the big thing. I think people really, when they get diagnosed with a disability or neurodiversity, they think they're alone. And I wholeheartedly relate to that sentiment. I think it's so easy to ostracize yourself and think that you're alone, but it's so important to know that there is a whole community behind you. And there are so many people that also struggle with what you're struggling with. It might not be the exact thing you're struggling with, because no two stories is the same. But there are so many people that understand what it's like to be diverse and to have diverse minds and to know that struggle. And so when you want to talk about it, if you ever want to talk about it, there is a community that loves you and knows what it's like to be different.
Have you found a lot of people in that community just through your experiences?
Yes and no. I feel like I am better at creating a community of allies in my real life, if that makes sense. I feel like doing some of the panel work I've done. I did a panel last year for the open house, and a lot of moms came up to me and were like, I feel so comfortable knowing that my neurodiverse child is also going to be at a school with other neurodiverse people. And it's so special because moms worry the most. I feel like I can't imagine what it was like for my mom to realize that I was going to have different needs for the rest of my life. Yeah. And so I feel like creating that community of allies is what I've really focused on, because disability is such a personal issue. I never want to force somebody out of the disability closet, for lack of a better term. And so knowing that I am helping create people who are allies first and foremost, for either allies for the neurodiverse community or allies for themselves. I can cheer on myself when I learn differently. I get overstimulated, and that's okay. We can still cheer on those differences. And I think that's what's been so special.
Kind of, where would you like the conversation to go in the future for just, the overall general being neurodivergent? Like, what would you like to see from the world, I guess?
I feel like I just want empathy. I feel like empathy is something that we can always strive for in every part of the world. Yeah. But especially now in our current political climate, I think empathy is often lacking. Yeah. And I don't think I don't think we're thinking before we post something. And I feel like it's very easy to repost something about a neurodivergent person. Like, I know somebody in my Facebook feed that like posted something like, neurodivergence didn't exist in the 1900s. Okay. And yes, it did, but and I feel like it's so easy on social media because it's so accessible to just click repost or reshare or something like that. And I feel like we need to think about the community we're affecting. I just think it's another important thing to reiterate that everybody's at a different level. Like, and that comes with thinking and empathy and remembering that, like, especially for other neurodivergent people, right? Like, I'm so open about it. Like, you can get me to yap about neurodivergency and disability until I get overstimulated and need to go home. But other people are not going to talk to you at all about their neurodivergency, and that's okay. And then you're going to have people who will talk more than me. And it's their whole life to be a disability advocate. And they don't, like, that's their job. And so the different levels of recognizing what a person's needs are and recognizing what their level of comfortableness is and openness is really important.
Ooh, I think I have a question. You said for your career, you wanted to be like librarian, correct? I do want to be a librarian. Do you think being neurodivergent is like helpful with that at all?
It took me a while to like that about myself because other people thought it was weird or odd or whatever. But I've learned to love it about myself. And I want to be a teen and youth services librarian. And so being the person that allows the kids to hyperfixate on whatever they want, I am so excited to be that person in somebody's life because I finally had that person, right? I finally had an English and journalism teacher who told me that I need to do books with my life because it would be silly if I were to waste that talent. And so I finally agreed, and I'm so excited to be that person for other people because that conversation and that person means so much to me.
Thank you for joining me on Wired Differently inside the Neurodivergent Mind, where I met with Luethy to talk about how she embraces neurodiversity and how her experiences have shaped her today. Stay tuned for more episodes.